The B major prelude is another just gem of a piece that I think is very emblematic, perfectly emblematic of the preludes as a whole. What makes them so wonderful, so interesting, so accessible, why they've been burned in my brain for the past so many years. And in this episode, what I want to do is go in depth into something we started discussing in the E major Bach prelude, namely what is a prelude, what links the Bach ones with the Chopin ones, why am I even doing this series, and hopefully motivate this hypothesis of mine that this prelude in particular is perfectly emblematic of them as a whole. As an idea, the opening is very simple. Bach starts with this little fragment of an idea and kind of builds on it. It just takes us through so many different places. I'm not going to spoil the rest. It's a very short piece. So we're going to do that, and then we'll, for the pianists among you, as usual, talk about how to practice the piece, and finally, how to learn it. Welcome to Amateur Hour. So let's dive into it. What even is a prelude? The truth is the history of preludes is very long, and the origins of preludes is pretty long lost. I looked this up in the Harvard Dictionary of Music, which is admittedly a very Western European focused dictionary, but that's fine, we're playing Western European music. And what I found there, to summarize, because they didn't have too much on it, it's just like a couple of columns, is first of all, they're very old. So the first written preludes that we know of, I'm pretty sure, are from like 1440s. We'll get to that in a second. But we think they're even older. And what we can gather based on people writing about the way preludes are, so not based on preludes that were actually written, is that they were improvised and they were indeed preludes to a main event. The way it's here, so in the Bach preludes, this is the Well-Tempered Clavier, every prelude is the piece before the fugue. We could maybe say the fugue is the main event. We'll leave it for some other time to explain why I don't play the fugues and only the preludes. So in Chopin, for example, there were only just preludes. There was no main event. But for a very long time, it was truly a prelude to something else. And again, it was largely improvised. So the first preludes that we have written, as far as I can gather, they weren't written out the way these Bach ones are. I mean, as much as Bach was a good improviser, there's no way most of these were just improvised. Even the simplest preludes have too much going on in there to not be at least a little composed. But the idea was you would take an idea, using that word a lot, and build on it, let someone improvise on it. In this example with Bach, that idea, this that little rhythmic fragment, you can see how you might improvise on it. You could just like put some chords underneath it. Simple little ditty. But by the time of Chopin, preludes also took on a slightly, well, not really a different meaning. I would still think it is very clearly tied to this tradition. That again is very old. I should mention that first set of preludes that I talked about was from like 1440, which is a good 300 years before Bach wrote these Well-Tempered Clavier preludes. And even then, it was a cycle of preludes in every key. This is a long, rich tradition, and it makes sense. If the point of a prelude was to prepare for a main event, it would be useful to have cycles of preludes in every single key. So depending on, you're playing Kodachrome in the key of E major, you would start with a prelude in that same key. So Bach was nowhere near the first person to write prelude in every key. Chopin, who wrote the preludes about 100 years after Bach, like I said, there's no main event there. It's just prelude after prelude after prelude. And people in the classical tradition have written cycles of preludes even after Chopin. And the Harvard Dictionary of Music puts it very, very nicely. Make sure I remember some of these words. Yeah, that by the time of Chopin, the prelude took on the notion of an evocative miniature, which is already just perfect, that takes a melodic or rhythmic fragment. I called it a shtick in the C major Chopin prelude. not a great, not a great word. A fragment's a better idea, or a motif if you want to be fancier about it. You would take an idea and build on it, just like the improvised preludes of many, many, many years ago. In that C major prelude I just mentioned, the idea being these big, wide chords. Or in the F sharp minor prelude by Bach. The idea being this do 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 do. Or in this one, in the B major one. Do 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 do. And I'll build on, as I think I mentioned at the beginning, it's not really the right term because in all of these preludes, this is just the same idea presented over and over again. So I wouldn't say the preludes so much build upon an idea as they show that idea in different lights, in different moods. I mean, just look at this piece. So it starts in kind of unsettling, adjectives fail me here. I would say it's a bit unsettling. There's a part that's much calmer, more serene. There's the part in the middle which is very biting. And by the end, it's this kind of triumphant, well, ending. And now we get to the heart of why I think this prelude is so emblematic of them as a whole. And it's because for such a short piece, Bach takes us through so many different places, so many different moods. Just 45 seconds, and I don't think there's a single time, I'm exaggerating a bit, pretty much every time Bach shows us this fragment, this idea, this shtick, this motif, it's in a different light. I mean, all the preludes do this. All the preludes take that one fragment and move it around, do something with it, and they take us through different places. But here, I feel like it's just an onslaught. Maybe it's just me, but it seems like Bach really does not let go. Starts with this one idea and takes it to so many different places so quickly, one after the other, and it's over in like 45 seconds. It's truly amazing. I love it a lot. I'm very happy that we can finally talk about this piece. So that's kind of it for what preludes are, why I like them so much. I should also mention, if you kind of feel obliged, I said that they're a little more accessible to modern audiences. I do love playing them a lot because they're just so short and sweet and to the point. I don't think this has to do with us having less attention span. I mean, maybe that's true. But I don't think it has to do with that. It's just they're miniatures. Miniatures are beautiful. Showing how doing a lot with little is I just think amazing in life in general, but especially in art. So calling them an evocative miniature, like the Harvard Dictionary of Music did, I think perfect. It does them justice quite well. Beautiful. Love them a lot. So that's it for the piece. Let's move into how to practice it and then end with how to learn it. It is the first piece where I think we finally reached a bit of a next level of difficulty, where there is more to practice than just make sure you can make notes ring out, make them sing. It's a little more than that. Mostly because it's pretty fast. It really kind of chugs along. And you end up with your fingers in some weird positions. We'll get to that. I do just really quickly need to mention this is a piece in 3 voices. So look back to my E major Bach Prelude episode where we discuss how do you study a piece in 3 voices. And again, the short of it is you need to take every voice separately and combine them separately. It's a lot of work. So let's say that's been done. What technical difficulty does this piece present? So I call this a three-finger exercise piece. The technical difficulty is a three-finger exercise. You might have heard of five-finger exercises, like take the first 5 notes of a scale and play them with the 5 fingers, one after the other. Do, 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 do. Very, very hard to do. It's hard enough to tie together 2 notes, let alone 5. Here, tying together 3, also very hard, but at least it's a little easier. And not just that, you'll find that you mostly are working on these 3 fingers, 1, 2, 3, in both hands. There are times when you would need to use some other fingers. For example, you see this is 4, 3, 5. But mostly it'll be 1, 2, 3. So what is my tip for this? I want to urge people, okay, you can use studies and etudes. You can go to Czerny, Hannon, very, very useful for sure. But I think it's a great exercise to take a piece that you're learning, pick out what's difficult about it, and make your own study of it. So in this case, these 5 three-finger exercises, you can take this rhythmic fragment that Bach wrote, this starting on the root and then going down, back to the root and up. You see? Root, 7, root, second note, 7, root, second note. Do 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 do. Take this fragment and just move it through all the different keys. In fact, you can do a little bit more if you want to make it more than just pure technical exercise. Transpose the very beginning here. It's really not that hard. You'll see that we start on the root, do 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 do, and then the second time around we start on the 3rd note of the scale. Okay? And take that through all the keys. C major. We're up to E flat. And what you'll find is that even though you're using the same fingers, even though it's the same shape, very minor differences in the way you're holding your hand, the position of the hand, can make great, vast differences and difficulties, and you're putting in use different muscles. I remember learning this piece a very long time ago and thinking, wow, this is so hard. I found it difficult to dance between all the black notes and the white notes, and I thought if this was just written in C major, it'd be much easier to play. And I think that's where this idea started, that, hey, I can actually take this piece, or any piece, take an idea from it and just take it through all the different keys, and it can help you get used to that idea, abstracted away from a particular key and a particular hand position. And you can do this with both hands. Let me give you an even simpler idea. Let's say with the with the left hand, take just this. Let's start on the root note. We're in C major. Start on the root note, and then go up, start on the 2nd note. Again. Give it a shape. I mean, presumably you like this piece, so try to make this little fragment. Do 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 do. Make it beautiful. Give it a shape. And let's move on. D flat. Actually, let's go down. B. B flat. A. And so on and so forth. If you can do even more than that and actually transpose parts of this piece into different keys, that helps a lot. I just chose this simple rhythmic shape, and I went with it. But you can do it like here. Move this in a different key. Great, great, great exercise. Now, what are you looking for here when you're doing these three-finger exercises? It's the same thing you're looking for in so many other exercises, is evenness, both in rhythm, to make sure you're not rushing anything, you're not doing, okay? And evenness in tone. You don't want to be accenting anything. Make it very precise. Either keep everything at the same level, or if you're giving it a shape, going dynamics, going from soft to loud or loud to soft, make sure it's very even. You're not accidentally making some haphazard note too loud or too soft. I said this before, and I like it because it just sounds so kung fu, but I think among the most important skills you need to develop as a musician is your listening. So before you can play, you need to be able to hear very well. Listen and play slowly and carefully, and just assure yourself that you're playing evenly both in tone and in rhythm. Good ears, very, very important. This idea of making your own etude, your own study out of a piece can be applied to the other technical difficulty that I find in this prelude. It happens in the left hand in two places, where you have to go from wide hand shape to very narrow, and then again from narrow to wide, and then back to narrow. This opening and closing of the hand, I'm not sure exactly why, but it's quite difficult. I mean, I think it's because, again, we're using such fine motor control, very small muscles. So I think even minor differences to the way that we hold our hand, whether it's like this or like this, requires us to use different muscles. Everything is very magnified when you're using all these small muscles. So let's apply what we learned. Start with this idea. You're going from wide to small. So take this and take it through the different keys. You can maybe add the right hand. Oh, actually here, we're here. And again, listen very carefully. Make sure that when you've contracted your hand, you're not accidentally accenting some other note. You're very smoothly going into this shape of having this shape having started with a wide hand and now with a narrow one. After you have that down, you can work on the other side of it. From this narrow shape, go to the wide. And again, oh, I didn't like that one. Again, listen very carefully and make sure you're not accidentally accenting some other note. There's a tendency for the thumb, especially, to be too heavy, or just not have control over it. I mean, the rest of the fingers have a pretty natural movement. They're pretty much made to do this, and on the piano, that's kind of what you're doing. The thumb is meant to grasp like this. It is not meant to do this weird, awkward little movement that we do on the piano. So that's one reason why the thumb requires a lot of attention. But for me, for example, the third finger is just very weak. I have a big trouble making sure it's very even, making sure it's even, it's not too soft, not too loud. I can even feel it sometimes that it's not biting into the note the way the other fingers do. So it requires a lot of concentration. You have to be very aware of your hand and which fingers need work. So start very slowly and build up your speed and take it through all the different keys. So that's it for how to practice this piece. Let's talk about how to learn it. It's not that difficult if you if you learn kind of the secret of how to place this rhythmic idea inside of the harmony of the piece. The harmony is quite simple. It's pretty basic. For example, here, let's say we want to go into. Remember that we're in the key of B. And in most, especially in classical music, oh, my wife just came in. Hello, wife. Remember that in classical music, very often, we start in a key and we modulate to the key of the dominant. So we're in the key of B over here. The dominant is the fifth, refers to the fifth note. So what's the fifth note? B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp. So we've modulated pretty quickly to the key of F sharp. So take a look at this harmony here in F sharp is quite basic. We start on the fifth. This is very clearly a C sharp major to the 1, right? This is F sharp. So 5, 1 could not be more basic. And then we go like this. This is a D sharp minor. This would be what, the 6 to the 1. To the 2, excuse me. So this is the 6. This would be the 2. The 2 often goes to the 5. Right? This is so clearly a C sharp. This would be the 1. Remember, 2 5 1s. Again, it's 2 5 1s all the time. This is indeed an F sharp. We do have the 7th. You can see here the flat 7. And remember that when you have a 1 chord with a flat 7, that very often wants to go to the 4. And sure enough, that's the next chord. If you don't remember that, I gave an example from Wilco. Check this out. Let's start in the key of A major. Actually, what am I doing? Here we go. We're just going to move up this note. We've landed on the 1 chord, but we've got that 7th. And what does that note want to do? It wants to move down over here, and we're on the 4. Back to the 1. So it's the same idea here. Again, let's recap. We started on the 5. This is C sharp. F sharp. This is the 6th chord, 2 chord, 5 chord, 1 chord in the 7th to the 4 chord. And then from here, again, we do what? It's like I think it's a 4, 5, 2, 5, 1. Yeah, check this out. This is very clearly from a C sharp. And then this is a 2. Whoops, This is your C sharp to the 1. That was pretty brutal. It's very simple. 5, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1, 4, 5, 2, 5, 1. What is it? 5, 2, 5, up, 2, 2, 2. Oh my lord. 2, 5, 1. Okay. So you'll find you can do this harmonic analysis to this whole piece, and you'll see that it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty obvious what the chords are. But it can be a little difficult to see how that how this fragment of do-do-do-do-do-do fits into the harmony, and that's what kind of unlocked this piece a bit for me. Learning it, I used to forget things quite often in it, and what I noticed is the following. Let's look at that rhythmic fragment a little more carefully. So we have two measures, we have 8/16 notes, okay? If you're not sure already, if you don't know already the best way to count groups of 4 is like this: 1 E and a, 2 E and a. So if we have 8/16 notes, we could count them 1 E and a, 2 E and a. So the 1, the 2, that's on every group of 4. In the middle, we have the and then in between those, like so the second and the fourth 16th notes, we can use E and a. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a. So this fragment is like this. On the 1, the first 16th note, we have a pause. 1 E and a, 2 E and a. Right? 1 E and a, 2 E and a. And what we notice is that, let's apply it to what we just learned here, what I just showed at the beginning. On the second 16th note, so the first note that you play, that is part of the chord on the 1, of the first chord. So the first chord here is C sharp, and sure enough, you see that rhythmic fragment, that second note was G sharp, which is part of the C sharp chord. And then on the 5th 16th note, we change the chord. So in every one of these fragments, we're going to have 2 chords. So the 5th note also makes part of the second chord. This A sharp is part of the F sharp chord, right? It is pretty clear. Again, this is the second note. So 1 E and 2 F sharp, E and 1 E. This is our D sharp chord. E and 2. This is our G sharp chord. E and E. This G sharp is part of the C sharp chord. 1 E and 2. This is A sharp is part of the F sharp chord. So you can see how, for the most part, this isn't a rule throughout the whole piece, but for the most part, you can find that the second 16th note is part of the first chord, and the 5th 16th note is part of the second chord. And you can apply this to the beginning. The beginning here is just like so many other preludes where we establish the key in B, and at some point we go to the 5 chord. The 5 chord, which is the dominant, which moves us back to B. And that's what happens here. So look, right at the beginning, 1 E and a 2. So 1 E, this is a B, it's part of a B chord, and 2. This chord is, I mean, I guess it could be a C sharp minor 7, or it might be an E chord, the 4 chord with a 6. Not super clear, but we have changed the chord. And then 3 E and 4 E and so 3 E. This is the second 16th note of the fragment. This is clearly part of a B chord, so we're back on B. 3 E and 4 E and Here, this E is now it's a little clearer. We're on the 4 chord, we're on an E chord. And then finally here, 1 E and 2 E and This is our 5 chord. It took me a while to see this, but this is our 5 chord. If we apply that piece of logic that we talked about, 1 E, okay, this chord, this note makes part of the first chord. I know we have this pedal point of B, but these 2 notes over here are fairly clearly part of this F sharp chord. This is our dominant chord. It's our 5 in the key of B. So 1 E and 2. Now it's a bit clearer on this chord. This F sharp, we're pretty clearly now, this is the F sharp. 2 E and now it's even clearer. If you hold on these notes, this is very clearly an F sharp chord. So I'll leave the rest to you. It's a pretty good rule. You'll find that it's not that hard to find the harmony, to do the harmonic analysis and see what chords are being played here. We've already done most of it because there's some transpositions here. This thing, from here, 2, 5, 1, happens again in another key. 2, 5, 1. So I'll leave the rest up to you, but apply these rules, and it'll be a lot clearer once you think of this pattern, how the second 16th note is part of the first chord and the fifth 16th note is part of the second chord, and it'll be much easier to keep track of all this harmony in your head. So that's it for this wonderful piece. Let's get into it. Let's play it. All 45 seconds of glory of it. Let's do that one more time.